Hello and welcome to On to the Next Project. I'm Brian Miller.
And I'm Adam Kruger.
And on this show, Adam and I have a weekly free form conversation about building a living and a life with your passion.
That's right. And this week we're going to be talking about accountability and also kind of what the origin of this idea to start doing this. So, I wanted to start off with that because part of the idea was inspired from when you had me on your podcast.
Mm.
I think it was in the longer cut version, or maybe even before or after we were talking. I don't even remember, where I talked about how I just thought it was interesting, the fact that me and you keep in touch and keep talking so as often as we do, especially considering how different paths we have taken. And not only that, we were pretty different to begin with too. So,
Yeah. I think that actually did make the final cut. Although it's hard to remember with how chopped up that episode got, because you were right at the beginning of the first season of me running a podcast, so it was much more edited now than
yeah,
then
and
than
I
it is
think
now.
we recorded for like over an hour, I think, and it got edited down to a half hour. So
Yeah,
it's all
30,
it's
35
things
minutes.
around
It
the
was
yeah.
it's a real Frankenstein of an edit. But yeah, so I do think it stayed in there, and that's right. We've not only taken different paths to end up in weirdly similar situations, I guess. It's like similar in some ways and very, very different in other ways. But yeah, we were different people too. I mean, where everything started for us was just we only bonded over one thing, and for a vast majority of the time we knew each other, like the first half. I mean, what have we known each other? 20 years? I mean, has it actually been 20 years?
Yeah, probably about
It's been about
close,
20 years, right?
darn close. Yeah.
Yeah. For like half of that time, we had one thing in common, and that was magic.
Yep.
I mean, you and I got into magic together. You got into it on your own. I had been into it on my own. Then, we talked about this, but we can recap it for folks who never listened to or don't know it. I mean, this is one of the first times what we're doing right now that publicly we're really doing anything together. You and Arlo popped on my channel years and years ago. Do you remember that?
Oh, of course I do. Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
And
and Ali. I think Ali was actually before that.
yeah, you're right. No, that's right.
Little green one.
Ollie.
Yeah.
That's right. I had that little tiny little apartment, and you came to help me because I was up for a national award. I had been nominated, and I didn't win, but you helped me get closer to winning than I
Hey,
would have been.
the nomination can still go on a program or on a website.
It
Nominated
it it
for.
it's still on there. It's
Oh,
still
good. Good.
it's still so yeah. So you and I were just obsessed with magic together, and I've always wondered that, like, if you and I had not had magic, if we would have stayed friends even in high school, but definitely afterwards. Do you think we would have stayed friends if not for that magic thing hanging
I
around?
don't know, because we even kind of tried bonding over other things, in that because you were in the sport and I wasn't in the sports at all, really. And you were on a basketball team and I joined a basketball team, I think, just to kind of be able to hang out. And I was so awful.
You were not basketball was not your jam.
No, it's not. You'd think so, because you look at him and be like, "Oh, he'd be great at basketball. He's tall. He's no, no." I was terrible at basketball. Same thing with volleyball. Just didn't work out. I was on the wrestling team. I did pretty well with that because it's an independent sport. I think that's why it worked well. But other than that, like, yeah, there was nothing. Music, like, you're so musically inclined as well. I'm not. I don't even like listening to music that much. Other
That's
than music.
that's true. When you said that the other day, you mentioned that you don't even really like listening to music. I'm just like, what? You know, it's just it's such a weird thing. It's like in every waking second of my life, there's music on, or I'm playing it, or thinking about music. Although I was running audio, I was running the soundboard for the school, and you were in the musicals. Not up front, but kind of in the choruses and everything, because you were chasing after your then girlfriend, who's now your wife.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, actually, kind of bring it back to the point of why we brought that up, is the fact that we still keep in touch, and if anything, you could argue that our lives are even more different still, and yet we still weekly talk to each other. And
Yeah.
looking at my phone records, it's at least an hour each conversation we have, at least.
Oh, yeah. and I feel like you and I have to sometimes arbitrarily cut it. I feel like we could go 3, 4 hours.
Oh,
Well, we did
yeah.
that a couple of times at one point where we
Oh, yeah.
actually you were working in your studio on a project, I was doing some work in my office, and we just got on a video chat and just kind of kept each other company for hours,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
which
It's a
is,
real thing for creators, I think, and I think it's important to have that, even if and actually sometimes that's where I think the most value can come from if it's someone not in your field, because it's almost like you're too close to,
yeah.
if it's someone like if it was if you did puppetry and we talked this much about it, it's like we're not getting that much of an outside perspective. It's still good to do that within too, because you still get another perspective, but getting a complete outside perspective can be sometimes more helpful than anything.
I think much more valuable, and that's I mean, that's what I do in my career, the whole speaking career that I have. I don't talk to people in my industry, magicians or communication specialists. I go
Yeah.
into every other field. You know what? So let's actually back up for a second, since this is like the inaugural episode of whatever we're calling this podcast, video podcast, project, probably.
On to the next project, right? That's what we decided
Right,
on?
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So some people watching this know me, but not you. Probably many people watching this know you, but not me. Let's take a second to actually explain who we are, what we do, because you keep mentioning that we've gone off in
Oh,
these
sure,
different
yeah.
directions, but I think a
Yeah,
lot of people don't know what those different directions are. So
yeah.
what's your jam these days? What are you up to?
My jam these days is, uh, trying to promote puppetry and try to get everyone to doing puppetry and building puppets, mainly through building puppets, which is what I do on my YouTube channel, and I personally think that that is the future of puppetry, that people who build puppets will be, will be the performers in the future for puppetry.
Yeah, so you got the whole puppetry thing, and you do have a day job, which is one of the places where you and I diverge significantly. So your
Yeah.
day job is
Yeah, my day job is being an elementary school art teacher.
elementary school, and actually, you might have to remind me. Do you do all grade? You must do all grades, right? So K
K
through
through 5. Yep.
5. Buffalo's K through 5, right?
Mhm.
That's right. It's different out here, and kinda ever since I've moved and been around the country, everybody's got different
Oh, yeah,
elementary
it's
schools.
different.
Yeah. So, and on my end of things, I was a full time magician. I did it professionally from 16 to all the way through college, and then I decided to abandon ship on a PhD offer to kind of go into academia like my family, and did full time magic ever since. Never had another job. Never did anything other than work for myself. And then I caught a lucky break about 5 years ago. Had a little tiny TEDx talk go viral, and it launched me into this wild, weird, strange, wonderful career as a communication specialist, kind of a consultant on human connection, whatever that means, which has been kind of my niche down, my brand. So I travel around the world and give speeches and do workshops and coach and consult on building environments where everyone feels heard, understood, and valued. And
Mhm.
I throw magic in there, and I enjoy magic now more than I ever did when I was a full-time magician.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that is one of the things that you and I have spent a lot of time talking about, where you like to talk about the fact that you never want to be over a barrel. You never want to be forced to do your art. I don't know how much we want to get into different topics. I think this is the danger with you and me. And
Yeah.
one of the reasons that we're clamping down and decided we've talked about this for ages, like the
Oh,
idea of
sure. Yeah.
doing just basically recording some of the conversations that we have on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So from your end of things, why are we doing this this kind of 20-minute weekly check-in call? Why are we doing this?
Well, I think for 2 reasons. We do it anyway, why not record it? Maybe we learn from each other, maybe other people will learn from it.
Yeah.
But again, also for the topic of this episode of being accountable, and being accountable on each other. And, it's one thing that just I know from being an artist is just, like, you get the most work done when other people are in the workshop working with you.
Mm.
And that's what we're doing digitally, because even though we have taken such different paths, at the end of the day, what we're really doing is very similar in that we are, creating, media to promote education just about different things. Mine's about building puppets, yours is about,
It's true.
for as much as I was saying it was different, it is very similar, but just you wouldn't if you're just peripherally looking, you wouldn't think so.
No, superficially, we're doing very, very different things, and one of the I really do think as we go forward and these kind of weekly calls, these episodes that we're gonna do here, I think it's gonna come up a lot, the fact that there are so many different paths to success, and you gotta define success for yourself, and we'll leave that subjective because everybody's got a different idea. Some people
We should do a
success
whole
is
episode on that. Yeah, what is
yeah,
success?
yeah, we should
By
definitely do
defining it
a
for ourselves even too, so
that's true, yeah, and actually, on that note, at any point, if you're watching this, go down into the comments and let us know, like, what you do for accountability with whatever your passion is. Do you use an accountability partner? Do you do check-in? Are you talking to someone regularly? Do you work better alone or in a group? That would
yeah,
be
and
great
if
to
you have
know.
any friends that are similarly like some of your best friends, but do something completely different and crazy, let us know what those 2 things are, because sometimes it's funny just seeing like, "Oh, you'd never think those 2 people would be friends," but it's just amazing what connects people.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and on that note, what do you think it was Wha I feel like if we had bonded over something other than magic, I don't know if it would have carried through. There's something about magic, in particular. There's something very I don't know, it's very special because both of us have been in so many different art forms and so many different fields, but don't you agree there's something really unique and special about magic with all the other art forms?
Well, I think what makes it special is just that the way people take it in, and if you the way you take it in as a magician is way different than the way you take it in from, a spectator. Because like,
Mhm.
when me and you say we like magic, it means something very different to someone who's just an audience member who's saying that they like magic, We like it because not even because of obviously because of knowing how it's done, but just because of the process, which is so much a part of what both of us do as well. I think
Mhm.
that's what the thing that we also relate on is we're so in love with the process of things in general.
It's true. That's a great point. I think that might be the through line that's carried through the better part of the last 20 years is that when I think yeah, you're right. That's actually hitting me for the first time as you're saying that. All the different things. I'm almost more interested in the process of developing a speech than I am in giving one. The
Yeah.
process of getting it how to transmit information to an audience from the stage because I love being on stage. I mean, I love the actual being in front of a live audience, but I also really enjoy coaching speakers on their craft because the process of figuring out how do you get the information that's in you, the impact that you want to have in the world, how do you get that to the audience? That process is really exciting to me. And honestly, I think I love magic more than I loved being a magician
Mm.
because I think
Hmm.
performing magic is fun. I enjoy it. I like being in the moment. I like getting the applause. I like seeing people's faces react. But I'm just as happy talking about magic theory as I am actually doing magic tricks, talking about why magic works and certain tricks work and others don't, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, it kinda fills the same bucket for you. Yeah,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. And I know that a lot of your channel, on YouTube, your main channel is I mean, the vast majority of it is showing people you actually making things. It's a
Yeah.
maker channel, right? Which
Mhm.
is a
Yeah.
term I had never heard before you started using it, and I never asked you about it because I felt like an idiot that I had never heard it before, so I just
Oh,
rolled with
really?
it and
Oh,
figured
it's
out what you meant over
it's a
time.
big movement. So there's a bigger movement going on now, yeah. And, yeah, but sure. Yeah, for sure. One other thing I just wanted to say about again, about me and you, and I think part of why it works so well in these conversations that we've had for years is just the fact that, like, we're both, you know, kind of we believe what we believe
Mhm.
until we're convinced otherwise. It's not really we're not just gonna say it because change your mind because someone said so. Like, you really gotta and here's the thing, I think we're both open to actually changing our mind,
Mhm.
but not willy-nilly, has to be convinced. And I think me and you are both, at least when we talk to each other, very, we've had some heated moments, and hopefully we'll have them on the podcast as well at some point, but where
We
we are
disagree more than we agree.
we disagree more than we agree, but I think when we go at it long enough, we end up understanding each other in a
Mhm.
way that actually makes us expands our, makes the point of this having that conversation worth something, you know?
I
Because
I I
one thing that is a pet peeve of mine that people do is, you know, sometimes, I'll ask people for advice or they'll ask me for advice. And then at some point they'll be like, well, I don't want to give you advice anymore because you never take it. Well, and like that's not why I'm asking for advice, not just to take exactly what you say
Mhm.
always. Like I take it into account and maybe it affirms what I'm doing or makes me think about things or make me come up with something completely brand new. So when I give people ideas and stuff and they don't take them, like it doesn't I don't mind at all, you know? And again, that's just a little pet peeve of mine.
No, I agree. The value, and this is where my philosophy background, my philosophy training, I mean, that's what for the folks who don't know me, I mean, I was all set to do a PhD in philosophy, and I was really serious about it. I mean, I was really, and I still am, but I think this is where my philosophy background gets really involved in kind of these types of conversations. You and I can get very heated and go on for a long, long time, and I can be convinced that you're not going to change my mind. And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. You have changed my mind, and I think I've changed yours on things over time. But it's what you just said, though. The process is the point. That we're coming back to that again. The
Yeah,
conversation is the point, right? It's that at the end of it, if I didn't change my mind, but I had 2 hours of back and forth on a topic that I thought I was sure of, I'm a little bit less sure. I might be a little bit less sure at the end of it than I was in the first place, and that's good, right? It's good to be skeptical, and it's good to poke and prod things and test. We can test ideas. Philosophers test ideas the way you test, like, physical things as a maker, right? With
yeah,
the puppets. I
mhm,
don't. I mostly work in ideas. Um, not largely, not exclusively, but largely work in physical manipulation of objects and ideas as well. But I almost exclusively work in ideas, and you can really, we call them thought experiments in philosophy. You can really take an imagined scenario and take something
mm,
that might happen and shove those two things together and think through what would happen if you can go two things that would never happen, aren't even possible. But you can learn a lot about yourself and the world by shoving those ideas together. But it doesn't work when you do it by yourself in isolation. You have to hash it out with somebody who's actually going to play off you. And I think,
yeah.
um,
Well, one thing it
yeah,
does automatically is it makes you understand why you even think what you think. Because I
yeah.
think some people just think things because that's what they've always thought or that's how they grew up thinking it, rather than actually, challenging those ideas. And well, that's getting really deep beyond puppetry for sure. But I think it does even with things as simple as puppetry and being a magician about why things and just why things are important to you in general. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's weird to ask yourself that question. It's like, well, it's just important to me because it's society says it's important. Okay, but why?
Yeah, well, that's it though, is I don't think we realize, any of us, how often our beliefs, you ask someone, "Why do you believe that?" And they'll give you some reason. They'll make up a reason. Something happened, right? You go, "I don't know," and they'll come up with something. We don't realize how often our beliefs are merely a product of our environment and the stuff that sifts into our brain all day, every day. And so when you actually get to have somebody like we do, especially in a targeted way, the way we have conversations, it's not random. We have conversations about your business, your art, my art, the goals and aspirations we have for ourselves. And so we take these ideas and we really polish them. And sometimes the best thing that can happen is you end up sticking to your guns, but now you know why you believe the thing you believe. And you wouldn't have really had that conviction if I didn't have you challenging me on it over and over and over and over and over again,
Yeah,
for which you do
yeah.
for an hour. So I think we're coming on into the end of this one. Anything you want to wrap up with for kind of accountability?
Other than I guess a piece of advice I might give to the people who might be listening is if these are things you haven't thought of before, and if you don't think you necessarily have someone in your life that you talk to about ideas like this, think about it again because there's probably someone there that you're not thinking of, or and if maybe they're not fully there, maybe they can become that person too for you. I think it's important that we have someone that can help make us accountable for whatever our aspirations are.
I think that's absolutely, we definitely, nobody does anything by themselves. And the more often you have people around, at least topic for a future episode is probably going to be, at what point do you actually need to close off the outside opinions and just commit to your own idea? I think that might have to be because there is a line, right, where at some point you go, nope, I've decided this is what I'm doing. But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, it's becoming
a
a
topic.
creative
Yeah.
therapist,
Yeah.
right? That's what it
We
is.
could have called this that could have been the title too.
That's right, creative therapists, yeah. Wonderful. All right, great.
So, yeah, okay. So, before we sign off, head into the comments and let us know what topic related to business, self-employment, part-time self-employment, creative work, anything related to what we're talking about here. Let us know what topic you'd like to hear us kind of hash out in a future episode. We've got lots of stuff we'd like to talk about, but we'd really like to make sure that we're talking about stuff that you would find valuable and interesting. And for all we know, you've got a topic we've never talked about before, and we have no idea how that would play out.
Yeah,
Which would
and
be,
tell us what you do too for a living.
yeah,
That'd be an interesting thing too, just knowing what kind of people are listening, if
yeah.
anybody.
Are you a full? Are you self-employed? Do you have a full-time job? Are you a weekend warrior? What do you right? Are you trying to quit the 9 to 5? Are you not? Yeah, we'd love to know who we can serve in these conversations. So, uh, having said that, I'm Brian Miller,
I'm Adam Krutinger.
and on to
We're
the
on to
next
the next
project.
project.